Hello and welcome to part 198 of Coding a Game Engine Livestream. Part 2 of Reorganizing External Libraries. So let's open up, our Visual Studio project, and it's coming across an error that I've come across many times. I always forget how to do it or how I fixed it. Hopefully you all had a good weekend. Okay, so if we give it a run, see what we got. What was the error again? So it's to do with collision. It says if you can't pick collision up. Let's see if I manually actually just add it to here. So hash include collision. Okay, let's see what happens now if I try and give that a run. Does that fix the error? James YT says nice. Hello James YT, how are you doing? Let's just post this on. I'm releasing loads of emulator videos. Hopefully everyone's been enjoying them. Okay, so we're going to search for. What was I going to search for? Unresolved. Okay, let's open it up in my Chrome Windows on a different monitor. Let me put it on here, which I just did. Hmm. See if make sure that this is properly. So you would go back one, then we're going to include back one, then into include back one, and then into include. So this implementation is not being picked up. Saying that, would it ever pick up the implementation? External libraries. What else we got here? That's a header only one. ImGUI is a header only. This is also, no, it's not header only. That have let me try giving this a build. If it does, it's definitely just to do this one single line. Okay. So it is to this one single line. They need actual library files. C++ include external library with CPP. Do I have to add the file manager? That's what I'm thinking. That's the issue. Okay, so I need to create a library file then. I'm thinking, do I create a library file this? Or the other option, do a quick library file. This makes sense for it to be separate, I understand. And should I have a parent one that isn't separate, but then some are, some aren't? Okay, let's compile this. Okay, so create a new project. I'm going to put this on my other window so I can see it without all this. So it says empty project is fine, I guess. And that's fine. I'll put it on desktop and click select folder, create. It says right click on the solution node in Solution Explorer and then click add new project. There's select Visual, C++, Windows Desktop, and either dynamic link or static library as you. Okay. Trying to think which one will be best. So the .lib, because right now if I go to platforms, Windows, SFML, if I go to debug, we do have some .dll stuff here. We do have. I'm trying to think, can I make this into a header only file? That's also what I'm thinking. Can it be? Could I do that? It's possible, I'd say. Very possible. To make it easier when linking it to other projects in the future, this file. Let me try it. Let me literally external libraries collision source. And if I do the same in include, pixel perfect test, bit mask manager. I don't use any of this, do I realistically? But actually does this use it? Bit masks. Yeah, this does use it, to be fair. Probably best if I just do it, give it a compilation. Okay, so that's super tiny, that file is. I'm just gonna build the other. I don't know, should I do a static or should I do a dynamic? I'm trying to think. Here's dynamic. Next, project name would be call it collision. Create. Oh, I might delete that in a second. Go to project menu. Select project dependencies. Change your program to depend on the new project. Remove that anyway. go to Properties, CC++, precompiled headers, and change precompiled headers header to not using precompiled. Okay, so I guess I can just add okay, so let's go to desktop, project 1, collision, and let's do the same for the CPP. We'll give it a build. Okay, how did I do it last time? So look, system information. Okay, so visual. I'm just gonna YouTube Visual Studio, create library, file C++. I think there was one from the channel that I watched last time. Yes, let me just go into it again.
Hey, what's up guys? My name is Achano and welcome back to my C++ series. Today we're going to be talking all about how you can set up multiple projects in Visual Studio and how you can create a library that you can use in all of your projects. So this is something that's really important if you're working on anything kind of sizable. Not only does it help you to create a module or a library with your code and reuse that code.
Alexander says, very interesting, going to watch the live stream later, enjoy. And there's all the other live streams there as well. Bro, your tutorials really helped me. El Purple Guy says, I'm glad they help with the programming ones or the emulator ones, by the way.
Multiple times, but it also lets you Studio. I'm just going to go over here and select File, New Project. So I'm going to be setting up a brand new solution which will contain my multiple projects. So over here under Templates and Visual C++, I'm just going to select General and then Empty Project. And then I'm going to give this a name. Now I'm going to call this Game. You'll notice that's also the solution name. And I'm also going to make sure the Create Directory for Solution is checked. Now I've called this game because it's going to be like our game project, our actual executable, and then I'm going to make a library called engine inside there which links into game, and you'll see that in a minute. So I'll click OK here so the Visual Studio creates our solution and project, and you can see that we've got a solution called game and a project called game as well. If I go back to Windows Explorer and take a look at that directory structure, I've got game, and then I've got a solution file here, and then inside another folder called game, I've got my actual C++ project. If you guys want to know a little bit more about the structure of Visual Studio C++ projects and how to set them up better, I've made a video directly about that called the best way to set up your C++ projects in Visual Studio or something like that. Top right corner, check it out. Okay, so that was pretty good to me. We've got our first project. Now let's go ahead and add another project. I'm going to right click on this solution here, select add, and then new project. Now again, I like to set up my C++ projects just as empty projects. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to select empty project here. I'm going to give it the name engine, and then I'm going to click OK. So now if I collapse all of this, you can see that our solution has two projects, engine and game. Game is going to be our executable. If we right click and hit properties, we're just going to make sure that under the game property pages, our configuration type under the configuration properties and general is set to application. Okay, that's fine. I'll click OK and then let's take a look at engine. I'll right click on engine, hit properties, and this, since we are going to be linking statically, I'm going to make sure that my configuration type is set to static library. And that's all that we need to do to make this a static library for the most part. Again, I'm just making sure that I'm modifying this for all configurations and even for all platforms as well. So I'm going to just not say the changes here and make sure that for all configurations and all platforms, I'm setting this to be a static library. I'm going to hit OK, and then now let's write some code to test this out. So what I'm going to do is just show all files here for both of these projects so that I can actually make my source directories. Right-click, add new folder, source. I'm going to do this for both of the projects. The game is going to get a application.cpp file, which is going to be basically the source of our application, I guess, or the main file. And under engine, I'm just going to make a new item. It's going to be a header file, and I'm going to call this, so here I'm going to call this engine.h. And I'm also going to make a C++ file. It's going to be called engine.cpp. Okay, cool. And for this incredibly basic test, I'm just going to write namespace engine, and then under here, void print message. It's not going to take any parameters or anything like that. I'm going to leave this unimplemented because I'm going to go to the C++ file, include my engine.h header file, write namespace engine, and then implement that print message function here. And I'm just going to make it print hello world to the console. I'm also going to make sure that in the C++ file, I include IOStream so that we can print that. Okay, cool. So very, very basic. There's my header file. There's my C++ file. We're not even dealing with classes or anything like that for now. Just really simple. We've just got one function in our engine. So back in application.cpp, my goal here, as I write this little main function of mine, my goal here is basically to just be able to call engine print message. I want to be able to write this code. I want to be able to execute and link successfully and all that right into my executable. How do I do that? So the first step is I need to include a header file which defines this. I don't, technically speaking, need to do this, like in this case, because it's so simple. I could literally write namespace engine and then void print message. And of course, like that's it. You can see that that error goes away if I try and compile my code by pressing Control F7. You can see over here that it does in fact compile successfully. Of course, it's not going to link because I don't actually have a definition to this. So if I build this all the way, it's not gonna, we're gonna get a linking error. However, you kind of get the point. Now, this code is exactly what is in my engine.h, right? So of course, instead of using my own kind of a solution here, my own version of this, we want to be using this actual header file. So how do we do that? Well, all we need to do is include that actual header file that's inside our engine project. There's a few ways we can do this. I'll show you a couple. So one way is just relative to this current path. So application.cpp, if I right click on this actual tab and click open contain folder, you can see application.cpp is inside game, and then source. So if I go back one directory and then another directory, I can theoretically go into engine, source, and then engine.h. So what I could do with an include is just go back two directories, go into engine, source, and then engine.h. And you can see, there we go, our error goes away and we can compile our code just fine. Now, obviously, this is just not ideal at all. I mean, we have a relative path that is going back two directories and then into an entirely different project and source. It looks very messy. And if we move folders or rename the name of the project or something like that, everything's going to break. So what we actually want to do is use absolute paths, and specifically using compiler include paths. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So instead of this, I'm going to right click on game, go to properties, and then under C++ and general, as an additional include directory, I'm going to include that engine source directory, which is over here, this engine source directory. And I'm going to do that by typing in $solution directory, engine. You can see that it values specifically the directory macro being that massive like relative path here. I can just replace this with a path that is relative to my actual source directory inside engine. So in this case, that's going to end up just being engine.h, like that. And that's all I need to do, right? And I can get rid of that other one and hit Control F7, you can see it compiles just fine. Now, because we've specified it as a compiler include path, I could also replace these quotes with angular brackets like this and solution. So something that is an external dependency and completely external to the project. If the code for this engine.h file is actually found inside this solution, or specifically something written by me inside the solution, not something like the C++ standard library, then I will use quotes to indicate that this is kind of one of our source files. So I'm going to bring back those quotes. Okay, fantastic. So we've got our header files all included now. Everything's working great, but our project isn't linking because we're not actually linking to the library. So there's a few ways that we can actually do that. First of all, you need to understand what happens to the library. If I right click on my engine and hit build, you can see that what Visual Studio does is it generates this lib file. And if we actually go to the path that it specifies over here, then you can see we have this lib file. This is what we want to actually link against. Now, what we could do, if you watch my video on static linking, which is linked up there, we could just kind of go to our linker settings and put that in as an input. But we don't have to do that. Visual Studio can actually kind of automate this for us because this project is in the actual solution. So what we can do is actually right-click on game, hit add, and then reference. And then we can select inside our projects and solution, we can select this engine project, and then just click OK. Now, this is basically going to link in that lib file into our executable as if we had added it to the linker input. But this also gives us another advantage apart from not having to kind of deal with setting up an actual file name. Because obviously, if we change the name of engine to core or something like that, if it's now called core, we have to go back to our linker settings for game and actually change the input to be core.lib instead of engine.lib. And if we use a reference like this, we don't have to do that. That's all automated. But apart from that, I'm not even talking about that. Another benefit is engine is now a dependency to game. So game depends on engine, meaning that if something inside engine changes and we go to compile game, game is actually going to compile engine and game. So we know that we're dealing always with the most up-to-date code. There's never back here in our code, I'm just going to add a C in.
I think I got that now. Okay, so let me open up the project. I will shut this one down. Yeah, I will create up another one. Okay, so create new project and call empty project. Next, and we'll call this collision create. And what I'm going to do before I do that, I will copy these into my new collision project to where I'll put it here, and then I'll add them in. I'll right click, go to properties, go to general, and for the application we're going to change this to static library, apply, and okay, so we should just be able to, I guess, just build it, and it should they don't like that either. You're spelled incorrectly as well. That does not help. It's also dependent on SFML as well. It's like a whole BS thing. Does that mean in here I didn't spell it correctly either? I mean, I doubt that would fix it, just doing that. Yeah, it needs to be compiled. It does need to be compiled, which is annoying because the SFML stuff. Go to GitHub a second. Let's see if I've already got a. I do. That messed up, did it not? Yeah, synced to the wrong one. Okay, so search for that SFML one. Download. Where's the download button? I'm just going full retard here. There we go. See how big it is, hopefully not too big. We just literally just want the templates.